So, our current food system is making us sick and destroying the planet. But we can do better and we must do better. In order to meet the Sustainable Development Goals and the challenges within my lifetime, we need to transform the food system. And this is really fundamental for both human health and the continued existence and sustainability of the planet. We use today an area about the size of South America to grow crops. So this is 12% of the Earth's surface, and about almost twice that much to raise livestock. So altogether, it's about a third of the Earth that we're using for our food. And this is a fundamental transformation of the Earth. It is the biggest driver of biodiversity loss. It is a major contributor to climate change. And it's making huge use on very limited resources. If you condense all the water available on Earth, for example, the bigger ball here, which is still quite small, shows all the water on Earth from glaciers and ice caps and the oceans. The quite small ball there shows the liquid fresh water, and even smaller than that is the surface water that's available to us to use for irrigation, for agriculture, which we use something like 90% of water on Earth for, used by humans, and of course, wildlife needs that water as well. You see also limited natural resources like this tiny dot which represents all the soil on which our food system depends. So you can see that these natural resources underlie the sustainability of the food system and of course have their own sustainable development goals. So wise management of these is going to be essential to meeting the goals. The food system is a major contributor to climate change, and actually the most important thing is what we eat, not so much where or how it was grown. And I'm saying that because this global analysis of the climate impacts of the food system starts at the top with production of inputs like fertilizer, goes down through the actual agriculture of growing food, and then transporting and distributing it. And what you see here is these two big bars are actually growing the food. So the process of agriculture, and in some cases the clearing of land to grow that agriculture, is what's producing the majority of greenhouse gas emissions. Transport is a relatively small piece. When we look in more detail at what the climate impact of our food choices is, we see an overwhelming impact from red meat. So a Swedish study recently showed that beef warms the climate about 5 times more than cheese. That's per unit of protein, so from the nutrition that we're getting from the food, and about 100 times more than legumes. A similar number, not quite as extreme, but the same pattern holds for water use, for nitrogen pollution, and other environmental impacts. So meat has a very large impact on the environment. It's not only the environmental impacts that we care about with food, but also our health. And now, amazingly, we've been so successful in fighting diseases that actually what we eat is the major determinant of health worldwide. So the lifestyle diseases and food-related or activity-related diseases kill more people than contagious diseases now. What this graph shows is that it's things like high blood pressure and heart disease and other diet-related illnesses that are actually killing more people. Of course, we still have about 1 in 8 people on Earth who are hungry, who are not getting enough food. But as Leonard mentioned, much of that is due to social factors. There's, in fact, enough food produced to feed the world at the moment, but not distributed or reaching the people that need it. So this means that we need a new food paradigm. At the moment, we have not enough of what we want from the food system, so too little real food production and sustainable food production, and too much of what we don't want, these unintended consequences, especially on the environment. So too much greenhouse gas production, biodiversity loss, water use, and water pollution. So to meet the global development goals, we need more of what we want and less of what we don't. So a more thoughtful and smarter agriculture and much less environmental impact. And there are many ways to achieve this. I'll talk about a few solutions. What this map shows is calories delivered into the food system per calorie produced. What that means is the red areas are where food is currently being grown that's not used for food, so people are not eating that food. For example, corn in the Midwest, a good deal of it is going to biofuels and especially to feed animals. Whereas in sub-Saharan Africa and India, the parts that are green, people are directly consuming those calories. And in fact, if people ate all the food that was produced now, we could feed 4 billion more people. So it's not just a technical problem to have a more sustainable food system. It's actually how we're using the food and growing food that people actually eat. There are opportunities to link people and food. Here I say food and cities, which is some of my research, but this goes much more broadly to linking people with the source of their food and helping consumers make conscious choices about their food. There are many good examples of this. Some of our former students have a project called Fruksam here in Lund that's harvesting and mapping city fruit trees so that the food doesn't go to waste. Another important one is diets, and this is where health and environment really come together. So what this study showed a few years ago is that heavy meat eaters have about twice the climate footprint of those who don't eat meat or who eat only fish. So that's a really big and important step we can take for a more sustainable food production. And that also, or food system, excuse me, that also matches with recommendations from Livsmedelsverket. So there's a good connection between health and the environment in this case. Their recommendation is no more than 500 grams a week of red meat. That would be no more than 4 meals, including meat. So both from a health and from an environment perspective, more plant-based diets and shifting away from more processed and meat-based diets is really important for health, both our individual health and the health of the planet. And I think this is part of a bigger shift that all of us can connect to food, something that really connects us to the environment, that we depend on a healthy environment to provide us with healthy food, and where our choices really make a big difference. I have an essay and more references and a full presentation on my website if anyone is interested. So I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Who would like to catch the box? Question for Kimberly? You're being very shy tonight? Or Kimberly's also crystal clear? I'd like to ask then, in terms of reaching the public and changing their diets, do you think a more quicker way forward would be to address the health perspective than to address the climate and future generation perspective? Or do we need to do both?
I think we can do both. I mean, our research with the master's student Louisa has shown that people who choose a plant-based diet were motivated more by health than by environment reasons. So I think there's probably a wide variety of messages that will reach different audiences, and many of them can work together. So I mean, I think it's very encouraging. Sweden has been held up as an international model for the food recommendations that I just showed, because they do explicitly link the environment and human health. So I don't think there has to be a conflict there.
And the latest digit I heard was 17% of the younger population in Sweden have excluded meat from the diet.
Oh, okay.
The group from 17 to age 34, 17% do not eat meat. And most of them stated climate reasons, actually.
Oh, interesting. So climate can motivate a lot of people, maybe especially young people who are very aware of the problems and less worried about their health. Yeah.
Very hopeful, I think. Well, thank you very much, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thank you.